5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. They got bored.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely.
Ready?
I can move you. Making review. Making review.
Say 6,
6,
5,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to another fun episode of Rank and Review. I am your host and random Canadian Larry Parsons. My guest this episode is Mr. John Allison. This is the first time he's been on the show, and he knows what he's talking about when he talks about movies. We're going to talk about some science fiction movies this episode, and the theme sort of has to do with ideas versus images and spectacle versus soul. What do you need more of? What do you need less of? What's the right proportion for sci-fi? When does one eat the other? We've got 6 diverse films on the subject, and I look forward to getting into it. You can let me know what you think by sending feedback to ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. You can check out the website at ranknreview.ca, and you should go into the show as always knowing that there might be some spoilers for the movies we review, and there will probably be some coarse language. But let's all be cool with it, okay? John Allison, welcome, very, very welcome to Rank and Review. So you're the curator of the Dark Bridges Film Festival.
Yeah, well, so now we're Saskatoon Fantastic.
Oh, Saskatoon Fantastic.
Yeah,
I apologize.
we used to be Dark. Well, no, because
bad info.
We're now actually using both names.
Oh, okay.
And that we focus on new stuff with Saskatoon Fantastic, and that's our big film festival. And then we focus on old horror stuff. So Saskatoon Fantastic is all genres.
Right.
Dark Bridges tends to be more horror, and that we're working. You know the Terror Table on like bringing in old classics coming up. Like so, April we have like the double bill House and Fright Night.
Sweet.
And that. So yeah, so it's kind of we do both now. So yeah. I'm there for everything.
I have this memory of meeting you at having a garage sale.
Yes.
And it was one of those garage sales that you, as a film lover and collector, when you're there, you sort of feel like you're dreaming a little bit.
That was about 10 years ago or so.
You were selling off like all of your DVDs for some reason. I still have my DVDs. And it was one of those things where I didn't have like all of this money on me, so I had to be selective. And I also didn't want to bring 2 grocery bags full of movies home again and get that look from my wife.
Yep.
But it was one of those things where I really could have. Like,
I was, and you probably have more, you have way more than I do now. At the time, I was up to about 1,000 DVDs and 300 Blu-rays. Now I'm sitting at maybe 5 DVDs.
Oh, wow.
It's just a couple I kept of like, I don't think there's a Blu-ray of this, and I really love this movie.
Yeah.
And maybe about 50. That's not true because I have the old Bond set. So maybe 70 Blu-rays.
I replaced an awful lot of my VHS collection with DVD, and I just like. I can't do it again. I don't have the money to do it again. I have all of these movies, and DVD doesn't look terrible to me. It's not like, oh man, that's shit. If it's a movie that I really love, I'll break down and get it. I bought The Thing again on Blu-ray. I bought Lebowski for the 4th time. So
for me, I went through a phase where I've pretty much, and it's not just movies, it's everything. I got rid of all my CDs. I got rid of everything.
Right.
I've gone digital and that for pretty much everything because everything is available. And that I just have to go through a little pain of sometimes getting it.
Yeah.
And when the downside is for me right now is my kid who's turning 17 right away. When we like, oh hey, it'd be cool if we would now watch the Alien series. I have to go get them again. Where I had them all, where it would have been like, oh no, we just watch them.
And where are they, and how do you acquire them? If I want to watch Jaws, I want to just be able to take the movie off the shelf and put it in. Plus, I'm a collector. I resent the digital age for the collector, like the little kid in me, who's been collecting Coen Brothers movies and Scorsese movies since like 1990.
Yeah.
And now I can't get the new Coen Brothers, and I can't get the new Scorsese because Netflix is a dick, right?
Yeah.
It's frustrating. And whenever we jump mediums, it feels like we lose movies. Like there's certain films that didn't make the jump from VHS to DVD and DVD to Blu-ray.
And I think we're really right now kind of stuck in the middle a little bit. Like everything's available, but it can be a pain. Right. I think in a few years from now, everything will be easier and they're available. And really, it just came down to where I don't like my house. All the stuff I've kept is just stuff that has really serious meaning. And I know movies do have that meaning, but it's the like, I have like my beer cans from when I went to Calgary Underground Film Festival.
Right.
I have the ice cream scoop from some guy who kills people, that movie.
Nice.
So I've kept these little knickknack things of stuff. Same like on my walls, I have like original one sheets for like you mentioned Coen Brothers for like Miller's Crossing. That's one of my one sheets.
Love that movie.
Oh yeah, Coen Brothers are top. They're up there for my favorites. And that. So like I focus more on just a few collectibles. And then just I'll watch the stuff, and it's like, okay, now I have to go through Netflix, or I have to go through Amazon Prime, or I have to go through whatever, or like if something's really not available anyway, then it's like that. Oh, can they find it in alternative means and things like that? And
I concede already in my early 40s that I'm like the old man who won't let go of his record collection. But I still I believe that there is
there's something to it.
There's a customer base that's still there, and not accommodating the collectors means you're kind of beaking off the real true film lovers.
Yeah, and I also find there's something, the other part I miss is we also don't have cable and that. So I miss I miss the chance to like, oh hey, I'm gonna deliberately watch this movie or things like that, and it's
anticipating.
And then it's like going over, pulling it out, all that kind of stuff. So yes, what I did was not the best thing, but it was also where I'm kind of just at life for what I want around me and everything. So I kind of miss. I also have an advantage of running a film festival.
Right.
Truthfully,
you watch a lot of movies.
Yeah, like trying to fit in older movies and watching stuff that's out in theatrical, things like that. Unless it's with my kid or my wife or whatever, or something really like, oh yeah, this director is. I have to go see it. I just don't get to those things because I'm watching a couple hundred movies that are given to me for free.
Right.
Some good, some bad, and that. And then, and that's kind of my watching and that. The exceptions are stuff like when I'm like, let's go with my kid, let's go watch Knives Out, let's go watch. I'm really depressed that we can't go see Gretel and Hansel. Things like this is like. Those really good horror movies, those are the ones I kind of go out and seek out and stuff.
And people who downgrade the theatrical experience too.
I'm at the point where theatrical is kind of like, I like Landmark now.
Right.
Cineplex lately has ticked me off so much. But that's where, with my film festival, I'm also spoiled in that I really do feel I see maybe one person in one of my screenings turn on their cell, maybe one, and usually none.
Right.
And that's because something is it's a more emergency, and it's just I would go to Cineplex and I just get mad and everything. So
that's a Pandora's box I'm not ready to open up yet, because we should probably start talking about the theme of the episode. But it's good to chat about this. I'm talking about science fiction. I usually do sci-fi scares, but these are much more straightforward science fictions. But I guess if there's a theme, you were asking why these particular 6 movies were together, other than they're in my collection. I guess the conversation I wanted to have is when we're talking about quote straight science fiction. There are people who think science fiction as spectacle, and there are people who think of science fiction as ideas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The ideas, I think, for me, is usually the most important thing.
Yep.
Like, I'm a story man, as I say all the time on the show. But I think, you also spend your money to see some spectacle. So the truth may be the obvious answer that we meet halfway in between. But with these movies, I think that conversation happens. Some of them are really low budget, so they have to be more focused on their ideas and use their effects where and when they can. And some of them are big budget spectacles that do they have any idea behind the production value. If there's another theme that we can mine that you've discovered, I would definitely go there as well. But I just wanted to talk about, first of all, the diversity of what we call science fiction. Because these movies, I guess you'd call them all science fiction, but they're all very different.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like I really, that's what threw me off when I was looking at the list, because really when we were watching it, when you showed me all the different lists we could pick from, I was kind of like, oh shoot, I haven't seen Scanners actually. Yeah. So like I was like, okay, well right there. Plus I've also been, I just got back from Underwater a little while ago. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, and I'm actually a fan of William Eubank's first movie, Love, and that. So I was kind of like, oh, I hadn't seen The Signal. So I was like, okay, I got these two.
Nice.
And everything. I didn't have real high expectations for a bunch of them, and that because I was kind of like, yeah, like okay, we got a little German sci-fi movie. It's their first movie. Immortal I'd seen before and everything, but it'd been long enough that it was mostly gone.
Right.
And everything, and I already, except for Gattaca. Gattaca I knew was like, yeah, that's like one of those cult classic movies that now is loved by everyone who's seen it and everything. So really for me, trying to find, I was kind of thinking a little bit of the themes, and there was some stuff that I kind of, the biggest thing that I picked up watching all of them just as a whole was, I don't know if I'm at the point where I've watched too many movies, but I called pretty much everything that was like, oh, this is going to be the twist. This is going to be the twist. Well, and I thought some of them shouldn't have that twist.
That's a flaw. I think that's something that happens when you're a person who watches as many movies as we do. I often wonder, like, when I'm feeling lukewarm about a movie because I find it predictable, if I hadn't seen 100 movies just like this, would this movie have blown my mind? Yeah. So I try to measure my response to that. But it's also how they handle it.
I think it's always that the thing like with Chekhov's gun and stuff like that, where you're just going in, oh, well, why are they showing, like, I start kind of like, while I'm watching it, like, well, why are they showing this? Okay, well, they have to be showing this because of, and then it's like, oh, okay. Which, like, I don't think it really took away from anything from any of the movies too much. There's one, I think it was a little bit more kind of thing when we get to it. But yeah, like, it was, like, for me, it was, I didn't really click in on the, like, I know you labeled it like real sci-fi, but I didn't really click in on that because I think mostly just because of Scanners being in that list.
Kind of a horror movie maybe.
And it feels less real to me than the other ones and everything. So I think that one kind of pulled me out. Do we need to run through what they all are?
Yeah, we'll do that.
In that, or like,
I just wanted to say part of the fun thing about this episode too, John, is like I don't know your taste, so I don't know like at all how we're gonna agree. We're allowed to disagree on the movies. I'm not gonna get mad at you, I promise. But like I honestly, a lot of times it's people I know quite well. I have kind of an idea of where they're going, so. I might have some unpopular opinions here, or maybe we'll end up on the same page.
I love pushing, like with the film festival, I love pushing the boundaries. I love making people watch stuff they're not comfortable with, things like that. So it's like, hey, let's push them.
I thought, and it was a good episode for somebody I didn't know because there is such range. I mean, I would be very surprised if someone hated all of these movies, but I would also maybe be kind of surprised if they loved
every single one.
Movies, right?
Yeah. Because some of them have some serious issues.
They do. I will not lie. There's a couple that I'm going to get a little bit snarky about. The 6 films we're going to talk about today with John Allison are David Cronenberg's Scanners. Was it a German film you said?
German,
Cargo? Cargo, which is having to do with people who are transporting a big cargo ship of, well, what they don't know is starting the movie through the deep reaches of space. The ambitious sequel to 2001, and nobody would want that job, really. Who wants to follow up Stanley Kubrick's 2001? 2010, the year we make contact. A low-budget but ambitious science fiction film called The Signal. Sort of animated, sort of not... I believe it was French.
French.
Science fiction spectacle called Immortal. And we'll finish things up with the science fiction cult classic, Gattaca. Written and directed by Andrew Niccol, who I like, but I don't know who's ever reached that level quite again.
Well, when we get to the movie, we'll talk. To
be continued.
Yeah.
I would like to scan all of you in this room, one at a time. I must remind you that the scanning experience is usually a painful one, sometimes resulting in nosebleeds, earaches, stomach cramps, nausea, sometimes other symptoms of a similar nature. At this point, I'd like to call for volunteers. Fine. Just, sit right here, please.
The Mind Force. Scanners. Their thoughts can kill.
So, I'm a bad Canadian, I guess, because it took me quite a while into my film geekdom to get into Cronenberg. I think when I was first getting into films, it was in the early 90s, and it was when Cronenberg was going through his like really ugly, dark sexual phase, like Crash and M. Butterfly, and like these kind of difficult, toxic movies, and I maybe was too young for them, wasn't ready for them. I loved The Fly, always loved The Fly, big fan of The Dead Zone, but these are the more commercial Cronenberg.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and for me, like I remember, I think I watched them, a bunch of them too young, or before I was really in, like I've always been into movies, but before I really had kind of a background and could think about movies, and that, like stuff like The Fly and that, like it's just like, okay, great, that was a fun movie, and like there's no thought involved in that, where now if I revisited it, I think I'd be putting more into it, and investing more in it and everything, but yeah, like I was saying, like I remember watching a ton of them, but then they just kind of like, yep, they were great, they were fun. Yeah.
The movie that we're going to talk about, Scanners, was kind of the one that established Cronenberg more popularly. It was one of his more successful of his early films. He was kind of a name within Canada, and like he was making somewhat profitable low-budget movies, but this is the one that maybe put him on the map. And I've always been of the opinion that Scanners is not a great movie, that The Brood that he made just before that is actually the much better movie. That was the movie that should have put him on the map, and Scanners was kind of the movie that did.
And I think Scanners to me could be a really good movie, but it's just the main actor in that he is so bad in it and everything.
Stephen Lack.
Yeah, Stephen Lack. Yeah, and like after watching it, I actually went on like. I went and like I just for fun I was like, oh, let's read some reviews, because I'm like, and I started Googling like bad acting Scanners and that, and everything just like right away, bam.
Universal. And Michael Ironside is counterbalancing it by being really good.
Yeah,
but he's our main character.
Yeah.
It's an idea. We were talking about in the introduction. It's the idea movie. What we have here is this concept of people that have psychic powers. Psychic powers that most infamously have the ability to explode people's heads in spectacular manner.
You know, if you want to introduce yourself to the world, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
And that.
So, we meet this Michael Ironside, who's our villain character, and he basically Scanner assassinates this doctor, and he's got this agenda. He wants to get rid of this government apparatus who's using scanners, or trying to use scanners as weapons. But he's also a bad dude too. Here's just a general tip. I don't want to be snobby. I'm not a super successful writer, but I'm jumping to a big twist of the movie. But if you're going to do a major twist of the movie that involves the villain being your protagonist's brother,
they needed to spend more time with him, and that like they had a good introduction for him,
right?
And for Michael Ironside, you're like compelled to do. Who is this guy? What is he doing? I just find the other side is so weak that I want to like Michael Ironside should be the protagonist in this thing, and that and everything, even if he is doing stuff that isn't what is probably best and for everyone in the long run, but he is someone who's driven. He's someone who wants to like by the end you know that he wants to like create this new world and everything, and that and everything, and it's just like, we don't spend enough time with him. And everything, and I think yes, he's a great villain, but he's not there enough. And then if the protagonist lack was actually good, it would have drawn me like, okay, fine, I can be fine with the okay. Like truthfully, Darth Vader in the first few movies isn't there a ton.
No.
In that, but he's so compelling, and that's what Michael Ironside in this is. But then you also had that good side in Star Wars, where this side you don't.
You don't.
And that and everything. Like it was just something about him in this acting, and yeah.
But it's going back to the brother thing. I just think like it's like Desperado, or it's like one of the most obvious tropes in cinema that all of a sudden it is a revealed, oh no, Boudreaux is my brother. I just don't do it. Just don't do it.
If they built better hints, and that and everything. Like I enjoyed Patrick McGowan and everything. Of course, I'm a huge fan of The Prisoner.
Yeah.
So just seeing him with a big beard and older is like, oh, this is cool and everything.
I like the ideas.
Yeah.
Is the problem. Is like there's a good movie here, and it's, I don't know if it was a budget thing. I'm guessing it was, or like they were doing it at a dead run. Like they didn't have a to do. They just had to make do with the best take they got on the day with the time that they had.
Well, I'd really like to know why they picked them. Like that's the part I want to know. Like in that, and I should have actually done a little bit more looking into like why did they pick Lack to do this? Like there must have been other people, and that and everything. But he is just a sink.
Yeah. But usually there's a measured thing about Cronenberg, and like Cronenberg himself as an actor is very flat. I don't know if like he connected to that because he saw himself in the performance, but like usually I feel like everything's considered. It's got this sort of smooth, measured quality to Cronenberg's work.
Yeah.
And Scanners feels ragged as shit to me. Like it really does feel amateurish. It feels more amateur than The Brood did, as I keep going back to it. It's not that I'm against early sort of figuring himself out Cronenberg. Rabid is a really sloppily made movie, but he's super young and like micro budget, so like we get it. It feels like the craft should be elevating like with each film, and Scanners technically kind of felt like a step backwards in some ways.
There's also some bits where I was kind of like, why did they do it this way? So when they have Michael Ironside, they eventually you find out that there's one of the scientists at the CONSAC or whatever is working with Ironside. In that, but they cut to the scene of them talking, and they don't actually show Ironside's face. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
When they're sitting on the bench, and it's like, why are you covering up? And it's not like this is a secret and everything.
Is something wrong with the shot?
I think, I don't know. Like it was kind of like, is there going to be this other villain, or is there going to be something else? But then it was like, no, it's just him. Because then they show them later talking on the bench at a different scene and that, and like I don't know, like it's just. Like I'm sounding really negative on this. It's actually like I actually really enjoyed Scanners.
Oh yeah,
and I thought it was like I had a lot of fun with it. I think the special effects with the head blow up, like just that scene is so.
I believe they
iconic.
used a shotgun for that. They literally like exploded a prop head with a gun.
Oh jeez, yeah. And I like the idea of where it all goes. I like when they get to the point where they're actually they're at the hospital, and they get to they're injecting women so that when they're pregnant, that the babies come out Scanners and things like that, and everything, because that's what he's doing this all for and everything. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a hokey twist that they're related and stuff like that and everything. But like the overall, I think it's probably the ideas is what I probably actually like and everything.
This is a movie that should be remade. I don't often say that, but it looks dated over and above that. But like the idea there is strong, and the idea of good psychic versus bad psychic, sort of a Jedi fight in the modern world. That what can you do with that? I mean, it could be interesting. Apparently, they tried a few times, but all of the directors kind of wanted to kiss the ring of Cronenberg and ask his permission, and he didn't own the rights, but he didn't give his blessing, so they didn't do it.
I am curious. I know the Soskas have looked at
they did Rabbit
after doing Rabbit, and they've got rights to do some others. So I'm not sure if they actually got the rights to do Scanners.
Well, I haven't
in that.
seen their version of Rabid, but I'm much more interested in the Soskus twins doing like American Mary or some like original work than doing remakes. For just because I think they should. I'd be curious to hear their voice.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's another conversation.
Yeah,
I don't know. The potential is there, and I guess I'm sounding really mean too. There is some interesting stuff in there, and it is Cronenbergian in that we do have some of the body horror and the identity elements to it. But I gotta say, it's a crucial moment in the movie, right? The final showdown has happened, and it looks like Lack has been destroyed, and like evil has won. And then we have this weird shot with Michael Ironside with different eyes, and Lack's voice saying, "It's over, we've won." And then a slam cut to the credits, and like...
Which could have worked if you actually knew how they were fighting and what they were doing. But I think that was like everywhere before it was always like, mainly just because of the one scene. It's like, they're just both trying to make each other's heads blow up. Is what you kind of look at it and everything. And I think once you actually if you walk away for a minute and you're like, that's what he was doing, and that's him now swapped into that mind or into that body. But they don't. I don't know if they need to spell it more, but also I don't think it was done that great to like.
It's also a tough thing to visualize because like the actors are just like pulling a grunty face and shaking their bodies, and with normal people they can just put a bad idea in someone's head and they'll shoot themselves or they'll walk into traffic or whatever. Like that's easy. A scanner on scanner fight conceptually is really interesting. Visually, kind of tricky.
Did you think any at all throughout the movie about like some of the stuff that I've kind of thought about, whether it was a little bit of the whole is it a class struggle, and is it the either a class struggle or like if it's this was 80s, so it's I don't think it's in there, but like the whole like the conservatives versus left, or like the hippies and you suddenly get the people who are the more rebellious people, the more that gaining the power by whatever means they can, and they're now kind of at the point where they can take over, and that's what really Ironside's trying to do and everything, because they are that rebellion, they're fighting against the institution and everything.
But would a world full of scanners be a good thing? It felt a little bit more traditionally B-sci-fi in that they're going to create a race of superhuman beings and improve us. One of my like insane guilty pleasures is I'm going to lose all credibility with you right now. Bats, starring Lou Diamond Phillips.
I remember the DVD, but I've never actually watched it.
It's hilariously bad, and it's fun for that reason. But the scientist in that movie has this line, which I always remember. He says, "Well, that's what scientists do. We make things better." So I kind of, there's the mad doctor and the evil brother sort of thing. It seemed a little bit more simplistic. I agree. I think those ideas could be there if you wanted them to be. They could be hinted at. But I think it's much more straightforward genre than we're used to seeing from Cronenberg. I like the ideas. I don't like the execution. I guess that's where I come down on scanners. And this doesn't change my mind about Cronenberg. Again, it's one of his oldest films, and it's one of the last ones I got around to actually watching. You said this was your first time watching it.
Yeah, too. It's kind of like who knows? Like there's some I saw a lot of stuff when I was much younger. Like even like when some of these things first came out, and they just kind of like, yep, they're gone. Like that. But yeah, I think
there's something everybody's aware of it. Like in the way whether or not you've seen Psycho, you're aware of the shower scene.
Oh yeah.
Whether or not you've seen Scanners, you're aware of the exploding head.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting cult curio, but I just don't think it's his best work.
Yeah, and for me, I think I really liked the ideas. I really liked. Ironside's so compelling all the time in everything he does.
Always love me some Ironside.
And seeing Patrick McGowan in something and that, so I think I was very forgiving of it. But it also like when we get to ranking them, like I would probably rank it up really, really high, probably if it didn't have
Mr. Lack
in it. Like I'd be like, I'd be much more like, this would be like, this is an amazing movie. But
in the interest of making a dad joke, his performance was lacking.
That was a lot of the comments when I was looking up after about him being in. It was like, just the name even.
I apologize.
And that, but yeah, no. So like it's I've seen I think pretty much every Cronenberg now. And yeah, I don't. It's not up at the high level of them, but it's definitely worth a watch and everything, especially just for Michael Ironside and the head explosions.
Yeah.
Ich habe mich beworben als Ärztin auf einem Cargoschiff. Dieser eine Flug. Und das Geld reicht, um nach Rea zu kommen.
Für alle nochmal die Schichtreihenfolge. Dauer jeweils 8,5 Monate. Ich übernehme die erste. Dann Lindberg, Yoshida, Vespucci, Brockhoff, Bortmann.
Ich will nach Rea. Und dich und die Kinder endlich wiedersehen.
Okay, so Cargo, German science fiction sort of space travel mix. I've noticed a lot of these movies are kind of be borrowing from other science fiction movies, just like little corners of them. And we were talking in the introduction about, you know, having seen so many science fiction movies, recognizing tropes and trying to be ahead of the movie.
Yep.
And I think that because it's a respected movie, but not a really well talked about movie. I thought there might be a reason for that. So I was consistently trying to outsmart the movie and, you know, thinking ahead of it. Oh, we're not supposed to like that guy, so that guy's going to be okay. We're supposed to dislike this character, so that's going to work out. So sometimes you can kind of work against the movie when you're doing that. Your critical mind is not letting you just take the ride. You're kind of in a way fighting with the plot.
Yeah.
So I think it's to the movie's credit that I was eventually swept away with it. I think there is conventional stuff, there is familiar stuff in it, but this story about this woman who's doing a many-year journey through space, delivering this cargo ship to a specific destination so that she can earn enough money to visit her sister in this ideal
Yeah, like
place.
the Earth has got to the point where it's no longer habitable or inhabitable or whatever it is.
Everybody's living not super exciting grim lives, but there's this ideal place, and I'm trying to remember what they call it. Rea, thank you.
Yeah.
She wants to get to Rea, to where her sister and her sister's kids are, and this job is going to be the thing that gets her there.
Yeah, 4 years of being in cryogenic sleep. Plus, also, she's the first one to wake up because she's the doctor, and so she has to make sure everyone's healthy and that and everything. And then, of course, she wakes up, and then there's something else there, or someone else, or something. They don't really say at first, but you have hints of like terrorism, eco-terrorism, and stuff like that. And whether that's tied into it, you have this new, the first time ever because of terrorism and stuff, they're now putting cops basically on each ship and everything. So you have this cop there, and then you have this crew that she knows nothing about either, and that, and once she wakes up, of course, kind of not hell starts breaking loose, but like weird things start slowly happening.
The atmosphere of the movie is so strong that it feels almost like horror genre at times.
Oh, there's definitely some elements of horror in
which I really appreciated. We don't know what's going on. Like, is there a stowaway? Is there an alien? Is the ship gone crazy HAL style? The cargo gets moved around regularly and automatically by the systems on the ship so that they don't freeze.
Yeah.
The atmosphere is dark because I guess they're conserving energy, and the cold produces ice.
That's one part I really liked in the movie. I really liked the fact that it felt similar to like Alien, to like all these other movies of people about being isolated. Yeah. But then they added also this cold aspect of the fact that they are in space and they don't heat up everything. And then when they go into the actual cargo area,
it's freezing.
It's actually freezing and snowing, and that because they have to have air in there, but so it's condensation and starts forming snow in this and that.
The atmosphere is justified.
Yeah. So it was like it really had like I thought it was really smart for like this is a first time director feature film and everything and that. And the special effects, I imagine for the time. Watching it now, I'm kind of like most things look really good. Then there's every so often I'm like, oh yeah, like the shiny parts of buildings look off.
When we cut to some of the more large exterior shots, I'm not fooled by the CGI, but I'm locked in enough with the story that I will let that stuff go. And I actually thought that the spacewalk sequence with the two of them out in the suits,
mostly there was some. I thought that was a little bit weird.
Right.
When she first so this is near the end when she first comes out, she's and maybe it's him. He first goes out. He's just so lit up.
Right.
Compared to outer space, that it's like, I think no, you got it wrong on that. But that's nitpicking on this. Like for me, I really like just kind of the overall story. You talked about how the fact, but as it went on, you got more drawn into it. I actually found kind of the same thing, because about halfway through the movie, I was like, they have all the crew up.
Yeah.
They're like, so everyone's been woken back up. They know there's someone around here. You got these two guys. And I'm kind of like, all I'm thinking of is like, man, when I watched Alien, I actually cared about the two guys. In this one, I have no friggin' clue who they are. They haven't said anything on that. Same, you have the one woman with the headphones, who's like, I guess she might be the pilot, or she's the tech person of some sort. And I'm kind of like, I have no idea. And all of a sudden, they started doing things, and they got involved, and like they have the scene where like the big huge gate gets broken because they I think gets trapped in between, so the two guys are fixing us.
Yeah.
And then you get this moment which looks like, something's gonna come out and get the one guy, and it's the other guy just running up and throwing a snowball at him, and you just see the other guy like with the snow in his top of the jacket, having been hit by a snowball, just kind of like, oh god, type thing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and it's like, I suddenly care about them. Like, you brought life to these characters who, before that, I was like, I had no interest at all.
I like that there might have been a kind of meta quality to those two characters, too, and that they knew that they were secondary, tertiary characters in this grim science fiction film, so, like, they were trying to figure out ways they could exit themselves from the plot, and kind of successfully do. So it was like... So here's where we get to the familiar aspect of the thing. This Rhea place, as we find out, does not actually exist. It's a matrix of sorts.
Yeah.
And the cargo that they're moving, which was supposed to be building supplies for a space station, is actually people. It's people!
Yeah. Which I was cool with the people part. And then I don't know if I even by that point, but I knew early on that, Rhea's not real,
right?
and it's all some virtual, and like it was just something clicked with it, and I was just like, I know that, and then it was like, well, why would they be shipping people and everything, and like once they started talking about all the VR stuff, then I'm like, okay, fine, like this, it all fit in really quickly,
right?
But I don't think it really took too much away from it for me.
It was a familiar element, much like. Yeah. A lot of it's sort of cut and paste aspects of other things. There's definitely Alien in this, you're right, in that it's sort of like a crew of normal folks. They're not military, they're just your average laborers, and except for the military people who are put on there. And the inherent distrust we have of the system and the military apparatus. I kind of just didn't like that female woman, the military girl. I can't remember the character's name.
Oh, like the first mate?
Yeah, and she just came off right away as like she's a villain. She knows more than she's letting on, and that played out to be true.
Yeah.
And I also, they have this fluid that people sleep in for deep space. If someone becomes too much of a problem, instead of having to tie them up and lock them away, they have this option of just putting them to sleep in these little goo beds.
So I didn't mind that. To me, what I minded was the relationship that burgeoned between the cop and I was kind of like, he just kissed her. I'm like, if I was her, I would have decked him at that point. And like, what the hell? Like I met you. We've been up, and yes, we've gone through a little bit of like, okay, you almost saved. You kind of sort of saved my life. You were there. I could have just climbed up anyways. And that. But then it was like, that just kind of came out of nowhere.
And it's not smart. Everything we'd seen her do was smart, and she's asking very direct questions.
And he just kisses her, and
he doesn't answer. And he's like, all of your questions will be answered by my penis. Yeah. And that seems to satisfy her.
Yeah, and so if we really want to nitpick, it's the same with I'm still trying to figure out the logic of I get the cryogenics and sleeping.
Right.
I don't get why that really hurt the guy's arm. If they're able to get in, dressed like where they were, and be put to sleep in this thing, how weren't they freezer burnt or whatever? But this guy's sticking his arm in. I was also like, as soon as they put her in, I'm like,
Oh, we'll see her. Yeah.
Why did you put her in with the card? Like I was like they highlight the card going in.
Yeah.
So like there's lots of like I think it's if it was someone like me trying to make this thing or something, I think I would have been like pretty harsh on a lot of just little pieces of it.
Right.
And that of like so much like why that? Why did we do that? Why does it like and that like the overall the big plot of it, the scares that were in it, like I actually liked. I'm not big on jump scares, but I actually I sort of enjoyed the they open the door and the head falls down or whatever. Not the full head, but just like the body, and that I like the atmosphere of the cargo bay and everything, and those things moving. I'd be nitpicking again, like why, unless you at the beginning start talking about, we're run down more than they did. Like I think they kind of hinted a little bit at it, and maybe I missed some of it, but. Why did when suddenly the cargo bay start moving and she's climbing on the ladder, why have the need to have one of the railings break and fall apart? Why have the need to have her at the end going out into space and suddenly her suit fails? And that, like, I know you're amping tension, but I don't think there was a need to amp the tension that way.
I take more issue with, like you say, the metal limbs of the rungs on the ladder snapping off. Like that just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
It was adding to the tension of her struggle and the climb. But it was kind of ridiculous.
Like just have her slip some more. You don't need to have that break.
I've tried to resist this. Usually when I find myself thinking about that, if I think about it while I'm watching the movie, then it's problematic. But like if I think about it after the fact, that means that while I was in the movie, it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
I have to believe that in a world where we have these vast container units with the automated shifting containers, that there would be some sort of safety protocol that if you had people in the cargo bay,
they don't shift.
They would not shift. It's just like common sense. That just makes sense. But then we wouldn't have had that awesome sequence where they had to run as all of the cargo things were shifting around. And while it was happening, I didn't think about it. And after the movie, I did.
If you treat it as that, it's not something automatic,
right?
And it's someone deliberately doing it, and and
at the time they don't know,
they don't know, and like, well, if it is someone who's doing it, well, there's only so many people on the ship, and unless it's like the terrorist guy type thing, then okay, it has to be the first mate and everything, and she probably would have the permission levels, the rights to do it, and everything. So I kind of like, okay, well. I can justify it all and everything, and that. But yeah, like really, it's that whole. To me, that like the only downside is like just some of the actual let's just amp things up this way, let's do that, and then that whole relationship.
Yeah, the relationship was too quick, and I think they were trying to make more impact for when he does the bold sacrifice at the end. So if they were just buds, maybe it wouldn't have been as big a deal for him.
Yeah, I was like, let's not sacrifice them. Who cares? Yeah. Like, let's bring them both back in. Why not?
I took more issue with the story of the terrorist, the stowaway, getting more to spoilers.
Why were there still new stuff happening about the terrorist
4 years later?
Yeah, and that if he's been there and
if his buddy knew he was on board, which we were supposed to know that. How did you not expect a guy to not go crazy in absolute solitude, in freezing cold temperatures, living in a hole in the wall for 4 years while everyone slept? Of course the fucking guy went crazy.
Yeah, like they almost should have had something where, he wasn't, like there was extra cryogen pods or whatever, and he was in it, and then for whatever reason it fails, and he's now like out, and that's why he's moving around, and that.
It's a long wait for basically a jump scare reveal that is almost immediately followed by the dude's death. Like, it's a long walk to nowhere, really.
What did you think of, when they get to that whole, like, okay, we have the fight with the terrorist and everything, and the gun points out and shoots and then pulls back in, I was like, man, why? Like, we know who it is.
Yeah.
Like, we know it's not her. We know it's going to be the guy. It's not going to be the one helper person who doesn't matter. If it was, they would have just showed him.
Yeah.
And there's no one else here who it could be.
Yeah.
So why not just show him?
Yeah.
And that and everything.
And that's usually when a movie's misstepping, when they think that they're being smarter than the audience, but they're not.
Yeah.
But I'm focusing on the critical things, because largely I would recommend Cargo. If you're into sci-fi and if you're into horror, both of there's enough tension in the movie that it feeds that sort of horror vibe.
It looks really cool for a first-time director.
Sure.
I have this tendency when I watch a lot of stuff of, oh hey, would I show it?
Right.
Type thing, and I'm like, yeah, I probably would have shown, like, especially back in 2009, if this came out, like, the special effects are great. It's an international film. The story's done well in general, and everything. Yeah, there's nitpicks and everything, but it's doing something really, really well.
Yeah.
Like, it's telling this story and everything. And like I said, I didn't care about the characters at first. But by the end, I actually did care about all of them. I even like you said, I love the fact that they base the two helper guys are like the ones like, yeah, screw it, let's just sacrifice all them so we can just go live on Rhea in this virtual world, and we don't have to be stuck in this crap hole job.
If we're not stuck on this icebox ship anymore, as far as I'm concerned, we're winning.
Yeah, it's fake. Who cares?
Yeah.
Which I like that. Like, having that kind of counterbalance and everything. And yes, the first mate is also kind of I don't know if it would have been better if they got rid of her and kept the captain, or did something different in that.
There was just something on her face that screamed villain. I don't even know. I might just be the actor's face. There's just something about her that is like, I don't trust you right away.
Yeah. It almost would have been cool if somehow they kept the captain and still had her be the villain.
Right.
And everything. And the captain's going along, but then get converted to the side of, oh yeah, maybe what we're doing is wrong, and that and everything. Especially since Earth is now back. If we're finding out, hey, we can live here again, well, why would we keep doing this?
It's just muddy stuff. After 4 years, who knows how things have changed on Earth? You really don't want to be this fanatical about the belief systems, because shit might have changed.
Yeah. So one more thing I was just thinking of, looking at the list of movies, I just kind of suddenly realized this fear of and maybe it is something that's bred in science fiction often, the big business, the corporation, the company, oh yeah, Scanners had it, this has it, when we get the signal we have it, Gattaca definitely has it, and that I don't know if Immortal really does, but Immortal has too much going on. So it might be in there and I just didn't even notice. And even saying 2010, it's you suddenly, and not so much business, but you have the countries and that and everything. So it was just kind of another theme.
The powers that be are not to be trusted, even in this future high-tech world.
Yeah. And the way to win is to not trust them.
Yeah.
And everything. And I think that we can see that through a lot of these.
It's good to say some nice things about this international science fiction movie, because, spoilers moving forward, I'm going to be saying some not nice things about another international science fiction movie. Good enough?
Yep.
It's incredible. Listen for a minute. We've got to get out of here.
I can't just order us to leave here for no reason.
Forget reason. There's no time to be reasonable. Can't find him!
Are you sure you are making the right decision? I think we should stop.
See, something's going to happen.
What?
Something wonderful.
It would be an unenviable task to be asked to make the follow-up to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and especially it would imply that you, on some level, were playing in the same level as Kubrick. And Peter Hyams is a totally capable director. I mean, I like The Relic quite a bit.
He's got a lot of he has a lot of movies, and there's some classics in there.
But I don't think anyone was ever going to compare Hyams to Kubrick. It seems like kind of a strange pick. 2010, whether you think it's a worthy follow-up to 2001 or not, what I love about it is how it is such a straight-faced science fiction movie. Like, it's about space travel, and it's about this mission of discovery, and aside the business that we'll get to with the monoliths or whatever, the science fiction elements are less what's causing the drama in the movie than it is the inter-character play and just space survival. And all of that is engaging enough that the movie works on that basis. It's from the mid-'80s, and it's set in the near future from there, and that's always problematic for sci-fi. I mean,
Yeah, the fact that we're 10 years in the past now.
That's right. And I kept on thinking, where are all the screens? Why are there not screens, everybody? Why doesn't everybody have the James Bond phones and all of this stuff? They were doing the best they can within the 80s, but it's kind of stuck in the 1985 or whatever when it was made. 84, thank you. It's stuck in that way, and this is something that 2001 is guilty of too, in that the future presented in 2001 looked very 1969, early 70s, right? So we're not being convinced that this is not an 80s made film.
I also think that, like, and I deliberately tried while watching this. So this is the first time watching for me again on this one too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that, like I said, this is why I picked this. Like, you gave me that whole list. I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't watched this. I'm like, okay, bunch of those. I'm like, oh, I've seen all those. But I deliberately, like, I think it was last year, like, I had just revisited 2001 and that, and this movie isn't trying to be that. And everything, and I think if you go in and do compare them, yeah, you're going to be disappointed because it's not that, but it's also not trying to be this. Oh, let's be heady. Let's be like really. Let's just like all like going all not psychological, but I'm just trying to think of the words for it. Like it's so much more. Like 2001 is so much more just the like.
It's trying to melt your brain.
It's the experience of it, and everything, and that. Where this is like, no, we're going to tell a good, straight up, strong sci-fi with really like I love all the characters in this.
Yeah.
The special effects are great for the time and everything.
It's interesting that it's a Russian spacecraft, and that there's the American component on board, just sort of piggybacking because it's an important discovery, and they have information that the Russians are going to need.
And if we're looking back, we know we're going through a time when like America and Russia are going through this Cold War and everything, and so in the future it's still going on.
Yeah, but it's another thing that locks it in the 80s, right?
Yeah, and that. So yeah, like it's to me, it's like I don't want to judge it on the same. Like, and if I do that, I know it's going to fail. But
if Hyams had tried to make this movie melt our brains in the way that Kubrick did, it could only fail. It's also, the blueprint was there from him in Arthur C. Clarke's book. And unlike Kubrick, Hyams is a talent who can sort of hold hands with another talented person. I get the feeling with Kubrick, it's never genuinely collaboration, right? Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick do a movie together. Kubrick eats Arthur C. Clarke, right? Kubrick and Stephen King. Kubrick eats Stephen King. Kubrick always has to be the big alpha. He had a bit of an attitude, I think. I don't know how well he played with others. He may have been a genius, but I think he's difficult. But the novels do actually care about narrative structure and characters going through, and it's hard to complain about a cast that includes Helen Mirren, Roy Scheider, John Lithgow, Bob Balaban. So what it comes down to, I mean, I can watch it as this timepiece, I can accept it as a piece of science fiction from the 80s, where the story mildly disappoints me, and this probably goes, I've never read the novel, to be fair. I assume it goes from the novel, is the redemption arc of Hal. Because Hal was so terrifying to me, like as a concept and as a villain in 2001.
So I love this part about it.
Nice.
And actually, because it's the same thing of like talking about those other movies of that distrust.
Right. We're built in to not like Hal.
Yeah. And suddenly all you have to do is like if they hit, and I'm like, So does that mean if in the first movie, if they had just actually told Hal what they have to do and that he would have just gone, oh, okay, this is, my job is to save this or do this and everything. And so, okay, I'm willing to, I'll sacrifice myself like that. And doing that in this, it's like just going like, if we just trust this and we'll be honest and it's treating people well and that and like that even like the closing line of dialogue of like, hey, this is our, basically you have everything else, this is our planet and stuff like that, and just like and that and how it can bring everyone together. I like this redemption stuff in this one. I think it worked really well and it all tied together with Hal being redeemed.
Well, let me defend myself just a little bit. I mean, I like how it's handled, and I really think that the last scene between Bob Balaban and Hal is great. And like, there's nothing wrong with the execution. The problem is me. It's just not what I wanted.
Okay,
but it's executed very well.
Hal to you as a horror,
horror
villain,
and
basically.
The iciest, most terrifying one, because you cannot talk Hal out of anything. Once Hal has, made his decision, you're fucked.
I was just thinking a good way to relate it to be like, oh, we're watching Friday the 13th and someone comes up and decides to hug Jason and it fixes it all.
Right.
It's like, oh, we're sorry, we didn't, like this shouldn't have happened to you and your mom.
Jason,
okay, that's all fixed.
Time out, Jason. Why are you doing this?
And it's just like, no, like it was an accident. Oh, okay. And then it's all solved. And I can buy that.
And I kind of figured like they were going to get there, the ship was still intact, but Hal would probably be on the defensive if they reactivated him. If he had any memory of what happened, he'd be like, oh, I'm screwed up, and they're going to know I'm screwed up, and they're going to try and terminate me. But that's not what the movie is. And it defies expectation, and that's fine. I complained in the past about not judging a movie for what you want it to be, but for what it is, and somehow that can skew your perspective. But again, it's not a hard hit against the movie. If it wasn't handled well, then I'd be much more angry about it. But I love that, again, Bob Balaban telling Hal the truth, that they're going to have to sacrifice Hal so that they can get out of there. Hal agreeing to it, and Bob Balaban saying, you deserve the truth, and then Hal's last question being, will I dream? That's all just so amazing. Like, it's so well done.
Well, and I think there's like so much of this movie, like the little pieces, like I was talking about, like in Cargo, the little pieces, there was lots of little issues. In this, I don't think there is.
Right.
When they have to do that burn or whatever it is around the planet and everything,
and everyone's terrified,
and it's just hit Roy Schneider and the one woman in the bunk, and everything. It's just like, that's such a perfect moment, because it's like, they're just scared, they're gonna die, they know that, and everything. So it's just this perfect moment, and there's so many of those little moments and stuff, and how they all can come back together, and after getting pulled apart, I even just the discussion at the beginning with the bald guy, Dana something, I can't remember his name, the Russian shows up at the satellite dish to get Roy Schneider.
It's Scheider, actually.
Scheider, okay, and that discussion they have, and just how they play that, like, it's a nice, great little scene.
Well, and it's very visual, like the levels. the Roy Scheider's way up above him, but this guy's got more information. Roy Scheider's trying to lure him down. The mistrust between the two characters. It's well handled. When it's well handled right out of the gate. It's one of the early scenes of the movie. And it addresses the sacrifices these people make for space travel. This is going to be a many-year trip, and he's got a 6-year-old son who's going to be like well grown when by the time he sees him again.
Both these last two movies actually did get me thinking of the whole with the cryogenic sleep stuff, things like that. Wouldn't it be cool if you actually did a science fiction movie where you actually dealt with that, of
the
repercussions of, like, okay, if I'm not aging, but my family's aging, or my friends are aging, or that, and everyone getting out of sync always.
For me, I just had a nap. For you, 4 years have gone by. There's been a 4-year gap in our friendship.
And I feel they all just skip that so much all the time.
No, it's just how they get from A to B. I really like the dynamics with the mistrust between the Russian and the Americans in the spaceship. But through all of the anxiety that they go through and this unbelievable, first contact scenario that they're put in, they bro up pretty well by the end of it. They're working, and they're hearing all this terrible stuff at Earth that like everyone's going to be killing each other. They shouldn't be cooperating in any way, and they're like, this is bigger than any of us, and we're not going to let some petty shit. And I kept on waiting for one of the Americans to do something drastically hostile and stupid, or one of the Russians to do something, and neither of those things happened, and it was such to the benefit of the movie.
Yeah, like the characters and all this are just all so well written. Even the ones I couldn't tell you who the woman is who got in with Roy Scheider in the bunk, but I'm like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And that, but then the ones who do matter, you can just see their person. I love that John Lithgow ends up with the hat after type thing. I'm like, I was kind of like watching like. Wouldn't one of the Russian people say, "Hey, don't take his hat," and that? But it's like, oh no, they probably like, oh no, you could tell they connected.
They were buds,
and that. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, okay, you got his hat, fine.
The one convention, well, maybe not the one convention, but a convention of the movie that this definitely had is how they went way out of their way to make us like that one Russian character. So you knew, knew when they sent him out there, he was dead. Right?
Oh yeah. But yeah, like really overall, like to me. If we strip it apart in that, I think it's a really great, strong science fiction. I think the story is told really well. The characters are really interesting. I really dug when you do tie them together, how they can give Hal I know we're disagreeing a little bit, but how they can give Hal that redemption, and that by just people being good, and everything, and that. And I didn't feel it needed to blow people's minds. So because if they tried it, like you said, it would have failed totally and everything.
So it's mostly positive things. It's only when you ask to compare it to 2001 that I guess it becomes problematic. And I guess I would sort of ask, I still think I liked it. I thought it worked. I watched it just the other day and I was engaged by it. I wasn't bored in any way. But do you think a modern audience would embrace it as much as people who have the full context as you and I? Like, if you were, say, 22 instead of 42, like, do you think this movie would have the same impact?
Depends. I don't know. Like, so, I think it really depends not what age you're watching this, although that definitely, I think, does matter, because as you get older and you watch more movies, you get more accustomed to things, and you want more than just spectacle. Yeah. But I also think we've got to a time where how many science fiction movies do we get other than little independent stuff that are, let's tell a good story, let's not worry about like the spectacle's here, like it is, but that's not what matters in this. The ideas and the story, and that's really like when you're tying these together and stuff like that and trying to do something like, oh hey, let's do real sci-fi, like this is a perfect example of it. And everything, and so like I don't. It would do well in that it would bomb at the theater, right? And then over years, people would pick up. It would become this cult film that people really appreciate and like.
It doesn't spoon feed you. It doesn't talk down to you, and it's not a fantasy. It's science fiction.
Yeah, and you could see every bit of this actually really happening. And I'm assuming like all the actual like science, the flight stuff, all that stuff probably is pretty realistic to what it would be like.
As realistic as they could make it in 84.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
What are you gonna tell me?
I need to protect myself.
From what?
So, The Signal, it's directed by William Eubank.
Yep.
I thought that was his first movie, but you're telling me that he has one.
So it's interesting. His actually first movie is called Love, and if you watch the trailer, you will see serious 2001 vibes.
Oh, interesting.
And that it's all about a guy stuck out in space on the space station by himself and everything, just kind of surviving and everything. And stuff's going on Earth, and he's watching it from up in space. But you also get elements of check the trailer out.
Okay.
But you get elements of like Civil War battle and stuff going on. So like it's supposed to be this really heady, like really smart sci-fi kind of like tying in, like not tying into 2001, but that feel. Of a lot going on and being big picture, even though it's just one guy in a little space station. And he, truthfully, if I remember correctly, he actually like built the space station in his backyard, and that for his first movie and that and everything.
Well, I haven't seen that one, so I can't speak to it. But he's just got this new monster movie out with Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, Underwater.
Underwater.
Yeah.
Not the most exciting title for a movie, but I've heard it's actually overperforming for people. A lot of people, maybe it's the low expectations people have going in, but
it's good.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It starts really well, and it tells a really interesting story and goes eat places. And we don't want to spoil what it is, but it's like it's tied to a lot of stuff that's actually kind of starting to pick back up right now, and everything in like some horror stuff and things like that. So by the time you get to the end, it's like, oh, it's another one of these types of movies.
Fans of the show will know that I am down for an underwater monster movie, like all of the time.
Yeah.
The Signal is one of these movies that surprised me. I believe I picked it up in like the 2 for $10 bin at Walmart, and I'd actually never even heard of it.
I knew he was still making movies, but it didn't go across my radar either.
It just appeared, but it looked kind of interesting. It was a cheap science fiction movie, and I thought it would be worth a gamble. And a lot of times when that happens, you know, there's an interesting actor in this. It's a cool concept. Why haven't I heard of it? Is there probably a reason? And sometimes that exactly happens. But this is one of those cases where I watched it and it surprised me.
Well, this is one of the ones where, like, this one came through Sundance. And it was actually like a Sundance pick and everything, so it played there and it got a theatrical run and everything and that. But
just missed me somehow.
It's a smaller movie, and those Sundance movies that are smaller ones often do get theatrical and then they go away and everything.
It's about a group of friends who are on a road trip, and they take a detour because they have this hacker that they've been sort of messing with them, that they're trying to find out more about, and they figured out the source of where this guy is coming from. So they're gonna go there and they're gonna confront him and figure out what the shit's going on. And then things go a little bit sideways. Things get a little bit Twilight Zone, and looks like someone's sucked into the air, or there's a weird flash of light, and they wake up in this facility, and terrifying experiments are being done, and a very stoic Lawrence Fishburne is, you know, on one hand giving them information, and on other hands being, you know, very mysterious.
You've had an alien contact, and now you're under watch from us, is basically.
We talked again in the previous times about that. Yeah, this movie does borrow things from other science fiction movies. I think most notably Dark City, but it's a very different aesthetic and a different approach to that kind of, you know, changing world sci-fi. And it's sort of like, we were saying earlier on, one of those things. There were a few turns of the plot that didn't completely sit with me when the movie was over. But while I was watching the movie, I was 100% in it. I was committed to the characters. I liked the characters. I wanted to see them solve this mystery or get out of it. When we lose one of them, it's like... it hurts a little bit, like it matters more. There's not a lot of tertiary characters who just are wiped off the screen for an effect.
And for me, I think I'm torn because I really enjoyed the first half. I enjoyed when they get to the house. Actually, I love the part where they do the gag of him sitting in the chair and everything, because I'm like, that's right out of Blair Witch.
Yeah.
But it's also hilarious. Like, it's the same as the two helper guys with the snowball. It was like, yeah, that's
playing with expectations.
Yeah, and that's like, oh, that's fun.
Thank you.
And everything.
Yes.
And I love the, like, oh, when shit actually happens there and how it happens, and them coming out and seeing her, like, up into the air, fly, like, and everything, and that. And I'm like, okay, we've just changed what this movie is, and everything, which is really, I can go along with. But then, as soon as I got into the actual him being questioned by Lawrence Fishburne, all I could look at was the mask, the helmet. And I'm like, yeah, that's either not going to be his real face, or it's going to be like something behind it or something. And then I started like, oh yeah, like, and I was just like, oh yeah,
you're ahead of the movie.
The whole right from there on, the whole time. And I was even like, oh yeah, they're no longer on Earth, and that, and it's just made to like, and like I think it was too obvious that it just sucked me right out.
It's a Twilight Zone twist.
Yeah.
Granted, I think like they just add some interesting components, but I guess the problem becomes, I like the ideas of the movies. I like how they handle the sequences in the movies, but like in the end, does it make sense? They give these guys these crazy superpowers and then don't expect there to be negative repercussions.
And also, like, why are they trying to kill him?
Yeah.
Now?
Why are they chasing him? Where does he have to go?
Yeah. And then,
like, he will eventually find himself in a corner where there's nowhere else from.
Oh, great! He's going to get to the edge of our spaceship and see that we're flying to this place and be stuck.
So, since he can't go anywhere, in the end, that doesn't really matter. Why this chase through the desert? Why the gunfights? Why? And while you're watching the movie, like, that wasn't front and center in my mind necessarily, but as I was sitting with the movie, I was like, that's for the benefit of the reveal, I guess, but like...
If they had gotten... So they managed to escape, and they get out, and they're running into all the other people who have been abducted, or whatever, they could have actually met with not necessarily like, so these people, none of them know they're on a spaceship, but they all know some weird shit's happening. Let's deal with that. Let's have that, as opposed to just a big chase and everything, and that. And how did you feel about the fact that it's like, oh, let's take someone who has can't walk, is having trouble, like
crutches.
Was it cerebral palsy, or like he was developing it, and everything, and the fact that he was losing his legs and motion and that, and everything, and then they give him the new legs and that. I'm kind of like, I don't get what they're going, why, and everything. Like, it was just like, it didn't. And I guess it just didn't click.
The one thing that I thought was maybe unintentionally hilarious was his final run for the exit. Like, his legs are super powered and like...
Oh, and then he runs through a wall which should have like disintegrated his whole body.
Should have killed him. But it's just, it has this Roadrunner aspect to him. When he's running down the road and he just becomes fast as a bullet and basically disappears, leaving this crazy dust. Like, I thought of the Roadrunner, and not in a good way. But I guess I was more forgiving of the movie than you. I saw the Dark City ending coming too. Maybe I saw it later than you did, but I definitely saw it coming. And I do take that as a bad sign if the movie thinks that it's ahead of us and it's not. Like,
I was really... I read a couple of reviews after a little bit and stuff, and they were talking about, like, it really did talk about, like, or actually some stuff from William Eubank himself and everything. And what the movie was really supposed to be about was people going... trying to survive and just deal with internally, like, these changes, what's going on and that and everything. And I don't know, I just didn't buy it. Now, to say that, like, I really enjoyed the first half, and getting to know these characters and that, and I think because they changed it so much and went this other way, and I didn't buy into it and everything.
I know. It's kind of a cliche moment because we see it a lot of time. This the secondary character, the buddy with the glasses. And he does this really bold sacrificing of himself sequence to... Their truck has been pitted in and stopped so they can't escape. He's been mortally wounded. He's bleeding out. And there's something strangely powerful about the way that scene's handled. It's like completely Young Guns cheesy as far as like, this is the quote heroic death that a lot of these movies have. But I don't know. I believed the relationship between those guys, and that, like, when they said goodbye for the last time and when he died, the weight of that death hit the movie and hit me a lot stronger than I thought it would. Like, it didn't seem as... It somehow didn't seem as earned as it was, but I was like, that sucked. That sucked. Yeah, that actually sucked more than the reveal at the end that they were in this.
They're stuck in space.
They're stuck in outer space in this mouse maze. You know, they're being just experimented on by aliens, and that's presumably their fate.
Yeah.
Question.
Yep.
Was the female character dead?
What happened to her?
There was the truck. Sorry, the truck rolls. They read the roadblock, and the truck rolls, and somehow both of them end up outside of the truck, and she's picked up off the ground, and it looks like her eyes are a little bit open, but maybe a little bit not. It's a weird shot, and she's carried away.
Yeah.
And then he gets up, and there's a standoff just with him. But like, I didn't understand. Like, did they take her away? Did they took her off the board because she was dead? Was she injured? It seemed like a weird thing to leave unresolved.
I'm trying to think. So I think in my mind,
she was alive.
She was alive, and she was just basically back captured again.
Yeah,
and everything. And then why he just didn't have a way to save her or anything like that, and everything. So. But yeah, no, I'm kind of like, now I'm kind of like, oh, there's another one.
It was just it was a weird last moment for that character. I mean, it's not a happy ending for anyone. They're basically going to be experimented on forever, is I guess what's going to happen to them. They're not going to be let go. There's no way home. So that renders the sacrifice of his friend kind of moot.
What did you think of Nomad and Damon?
Again, it was handled a little heavy-handed. Like,
I'm like, oh. Yeah. It's kind of like, truthfully, even so, if I'd gone through all that, and then he walked up, and I'm like, look at his badge, and it says Damon. I don't think I would have, because suddenly, Nomad.
Yeah.
Like, it just like, no, why?
The badge on him was the thing. If he just said his name, I would have gone with it. I would have just let it go. Mm-hmm. But he had the name badge on it, and they showed us the close-up on the name badge. It was like, this is a thing, and like, we get it. Again, it's one of those times where the movie thinks it's smarter than us.
It's too on the nose.
And they hit it too hard. Yeah. If he just very quickly mentioned his name when they first met, and that was like it, and then maybe you could say it was more clever.
Yeah.
But the movie overperformed for me, I guess. I was kinder to it. I recognize that it's one of these piecemeals of other movies. You know, what's the guy who did The Descent?
Neil Marshall.
Neil Marshall did that movie Doomsday.
That's a peeve of mine, that one.
It's a piecemeal of other movies, right? This is the scene from Aliens, this is a scene from Mad Max, and this is a scene, and like, dude, you're an incredibly talented and original filmmaker. Why? Right? This didn't feel like that. The ideas were maybe taken from other places, but the approach felt...
Yeah, and to me, I think the story just isn't strong. Once you get halfway.
I say the same thing about these James Wan Boo movies, like The Conjuring, stuff like that. There's absolutely nothing new about those movies at all, but they're handled well.
Yeah.
And I guess I would say a similar thing about The Signal. It's not cutting edge sci-fi. It's not really breaking new ground. But I think considering the budget, it's well handled.
I think he has. I think he has a lot of skill. I think the story just lets it down.
Right.
Really, like, I think he can make a really good movie. And that, I know people who dislike Love. I thought it was really neat and looked really good.
Well, I gotta say,
same Underwater. Like,
I'm curious to check them both out.
Yeah, like, this is just, the story let me down.
Yeah, but it's competent filmmaking.
Yep,
for sure.
You're the greatest mystery of nature I've ever come across. Some of the vertebrate animals on this planet shed their skin. You are going through the same process.
Young women like her are rare, extremely rare. There are only a few of them in the entire universe. They don't even know who they are themselves or the power they have. You're going to need someone to take you home. What power? The greatest power of all.
Jill.
The power to procreate with gods.
So I don't get a lot of emails from listeners, as many, not as many as I'd like, especially from listeners who are new to me. And I'd always love to get female. I always like to get feedback from my listeners at ranknreview at gmail.com. If you wanted to do so, very rarely do I get feedback, but I got feedback when I did my review, fairly savage review of the much beloved sci-fi film, The Fifth Element.
Oh, I have to listen to that. I didn't.
My argument being that though it is beautiful, it was just essentially empty and simplistic and baby formula sci-fi as far as I'm concerned. I just think it's a vastly overrated thing. It's pretty, but for me, that's about it. It is so much better than Immortal. It is so much better than Immortal that I feel like I owe The Fifth Element an apology after I watched Immortal. I couldn't say that the movie didn't have ambition, and at the time I'm sure it was a great visual treat. There's this weird uncanny valley mix of CGI animation and live action, and a little bit of maybe rotoscoping. But the story is confounding and pretentious and slow and not very engaging. It's got these weird Egyptian gods, but they're sort of treating them in the traditional sort of Roman Greek kind of tradition of gods that come down and mess with Earth and rape human women and father these half god, half human. It's a mix of different ideas. Definitely in love with Blade Runner. The whole city landscape and certain shots and sequences are cut paste right out of Blade Runner, and just a parade of not that engaging characters. And every now and then the movie would introduce a villain, and I think, okay, now we're going to step into high gear and shit's going to start to happen and shit's going to start to make sense. Or now the origin of the Blue Lady is going to be explained and make sense. Or now I'm going to suddenly connect with this main character, Nikolai, and feel sympathy for him. Or this entity that's sent down to Earth is 7 days to live before his immortality ends. And I'm sorry to be a nitpicky guy, but if you're going to die, technically, you're not immortal. But there is a lot of ideas and a lot of visuals and a lot of energy being put into this movie. And I went from being disappointed to being hopeful, to being frustrated, to coming close to actively hating it.
Yeah.
So this is not going to be a positive review. It's one of those things that I want to like, I like the idea of the animation telling an adult story. It's there's just too much. It's like they put everything into a blender and asked us to eat it, and it tasted awful.
Yeah. So I went out after this and I picked up the graphic novel because I'm like, I wanted to actually know what was really going on.
Right.
My issue with this movie, and I haven't read the graphic novel yet, so I can't answer the questions. My issue is the
movie has to be able to stand on its own.
Yeah,
would be my defense.
And I really think they tried to fit too much in.
Right.
Is really what it just comes down to. In that, we'll get into one real problem I have with the movie, but that's more of just where story goes. But overall, there's too many characters that we don't know what they're doing, and we don't know who they are, why they are, why do they hate, why is this guy I think it's actually Nicobol or something.
Nicobol, sorry.
Yeah, Nicobol or something like that.
I didn't care enough to remember his name properly.
Why is everyone he's some rebel guy in that? But okay,
a rebel of what?
But he's been in sleep mode for how long, and suddenly he's free, and now this is a big deal. I didn't see anything about him being a big deal, and that he didn't do anything. He wasn't doing anything. What why the whole Egyptian god thing, it's there, but it's just there, and it's it just doesn't feel like it really. I don't it just needs more.
The scenes don't seem related somehow.
Yeah,
when we jump from different characters.
Who's this guy, weird looking big fat guy and stuff? Yeah. Who's they have Charlotte Rampling. Yeah. But when how does there's just too much going on, and I couldn't tie it together by the end. And I was kind of well, the visuals are kind of cool.
There's too much going on, and yet there is nothing.
Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like it makes sense, but that is basically an adequate description of this movie.
And her, the main female lead.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's someone who was just born or something, because they don't have any record of her or whatever, and everything, her body is brand new or whatever, and she apparently is the only woman who can give birth to a god from a god and that. But where did she come from?
Yeah.
And that.
She doesn't know, and we don't know. Apparently,
And you will never
entities like her just show up
Yep.
so that gods can make a baby with her,
Yep.
and that's his bid for immortality, which I still don't think counts. Like, yes, we live on through our children, but our children aren't us. They're extensions of us, perhaps, but they're not.
And
us.
that's where they could have like with all this, if they explained that, oh yeah, he actually gets passed on through this, and it's
Right.
like, yes,
It will be
his
him
body
again.
dies, but it's him again.
Maybe.
And that.
But that didn't happen.
So yeah, like that's I totally on board with you and agree with that. But that's not why I actually dislike the movie as much. This movie is really, really rapey.
Yes. I haven't even gotten to that.
Yeah,
part,
which
yes.
I'm like, what the I actually so I don't have a. It depends on the movie and how well they handle that type of stuff. There's movies that can handle it really well and do it really well. This movie does not.
No.
And it's like her talking to this guy who is like, well, are you you who's gonna rape me now? I'm like, oh my god, why are you there with him?
Why are you talking to him?
Yeah, but you love him? No, you don't. He's like, this is gonna happen to you. Like, and it's just like,
at some point you understand that he's being puppeted by someone else, but in the end you're still raped.
yeah,
right?
and
like,
I don't think, and like, it's such a hard thing to talk about. Like, I don't think you could take that and go, oh yeah, that's not really you. I don't, like, there's no way, like, that's that.
You talk about how you handle it.
Yeah.
This is obviously a sensitive subject, rape. It's not even about how they handled it in this movie. It's taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't throw out rape like it's a plot point, right? And this is true to sort of classic mythic legend, though. Gods would come down from the sky and take the shape of a swan and rape chicks. Like, that's that's stuff that would happen. They're pulling from a pool of mythology, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I also hate how they animated the thing where he sort of speaks with weird wiggles on his throat, and his face just looks more cartoony than anything else in the environment.
I'm willing to forgive it because it's like, what, 2004 or something like that, and I think it's like, that's where graphics are. Like, I seem to remember, was it Sky Captain?
Right.
It was the same. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
I've had things submitted to the festival that were like, oh yeah, this is green screen. But it was also like, in some of those, I'm also like, oh yeah, all the actors are regular, or people, but everything else is green screen. And this, I'm like, why are you CGI?
Yeah.
Why is that person just makeup? I don't get why you picked what you picked, and I get if it was because they're alien looking, then make them aliens.
Yeah.
Don't make them look like humans that are CGI. And I'm also like, 'cause it was just like, oh, like.
But Sky Captain at least became accidentally interesting because of the retro aesthetic, combined with the fact that the animation, which was amazing at the time it came out, looking kind of terrible and retro at the time, has sort of doubles down on its retro vibe, so it becomes this completely unique movie. Whereas this is just a mess.
Yep.
I hated like that they introduced this one like genetic creation bounty hunter creature. And then it tracks down the god, and it's instantly killed.
There was something about that I actually liked.
And then, but it happens fucking twice.
Yeah.
Because then they introduced this shark creature that's coolly animated, and I have a shark thing, and it's going to jump around, and it's going to focus in on the sun, and then again, right away, it's just completely killed instantly, twice, and it's just like, well,
yeah, I
there's
think
no
that's
stakes. There's no stakes. He's a god. He can do whatever he wants, and he will do whatever he wants, including raping women, and we're still supposed to be cheering for him and liking him for some reason.
I don't even know if we are. Like, that's I think we're supposed to like the guy.
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to dislike Horace, and that, but I'm not 100% sure of that, and everything. And then, like, their interactions are kind of like amusing together, like giving him the metal leg and then he can't do it and move and stuff like that. Like, I kind of like, it's kind of like, it's kind of fun and that, but I'm also like, I don't. Yeah, the movie's. I think the movie's just a mess.
Right,
is really what the issue is, and there's like too much going on, too much trying to do everything, and that's why, like, right away I was like, yeah, I want to go read this graphic novel just to see if they actually pull it together.
I had a similar thing with Southland Tales, because I hated Southland Tales, but I thought, well, it's based on a graphic novel. Maybe if I like get proper context.
Yeah. And I'm very forgiving for Southland Tales.
Right. Well, it hit me wrong. It hit me wrong. Let's talk about blue nipples. I think it's a misnomer, especially I did an episode recently on anime, that movies that are trying to be quote-unquote adult will have nudity, not because it's required, but because that makes the movie adult.
Yes.
And the movie is so ponderous, again, counterintuitively, there's all these interesting ideas, and yet it's boring. So let's throw some tits into the mix. That's what it felt like. It's not a heavy metal sort of magazine type of world. I guess there's sex in the movie, but the initial sex especially not erotic, and the relationship that develops between those characters completely not credible. So I don't care, and I don't want to spend all this time in these unintentionally hilarious scenes where like Nikolai's laying in bed kind of in the afterglow of having sex, and then the god appears next to him also naked, all splayed out on the bed, and it looks hilarious and ridiculous, and I hated it. I hated it, dude. I don't know what to say. I hate it.
It's just like nothing's handled well, nothing's explained well, and like I am all for movies that actually do use nudity and do all that, but do it really well. Like there's stuff that I really love that is a really hard watch with like some nudity and stuff like that, because it's not supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be harsh, and it's supposed to make you squirm in your seat and feel like you're slime and grime and things like that. I can take something from that. I can also take something from where it's like, okay, this is supposed to be really sensual, really. This is just something.
Titillation is not a bad word as far as
this is just like. Ugh.
And here's another sex scene, and here's another conversation where it establishes that they have no vibe between them at all, and then followed by another sex scene, and I don't know. I could go on, but I don't know what I would accomplish.
I think we're just going to keep saying this thing's as a mess, and it's like. Yeah,
I've said before when I was talking about Matt, I can't remember what movie we were talking about, that like it might work if you projected it without sound on a wall while you were playing music at a party or something like that.
I was at a bar and they were playing Holy Mountain on screen because it was when Anchor Bay re-released them, and it was like this brand new, like pristine, and we were just all like, we can't hear anything, but we're all just staring at it the entire time because it's like, wow, the visuals on that.
I guess you couldn't say that the movie wasn't ambitious, but it almost entirely, front to back, did not work for me.
Yeah, I think I liked it a bit more than you, but I'm also like it's a mess. It doesn't do anything well and right.
In the not too distant future, our DNA will determine everything about us. A minute drop of blood, saliva, or a single hair determines where you can work, who you should marry, what you're capable of achieving. In a society where success is determined by science, divided by the standards of perfection, one man's only chance.
How do you expect to pull this off? I don't know exactly.
Is to hide his own identity.
This is the last day that you're going to be you and I'm going to be me.
By borrowing someone else's.
Congratulations. What about the interview? That was it.
Do you think you'd be doing what you're doing if it wasn't for who you are, what you are?
I have a feeling he might be there under false pretenses, playing somebody else's hand.
They've got my picture plastered up all over the place. They'll recognize me.
They won't recognize me.
They'll recognize me.
I don't recognize you. They won't believe that one of their elite could have suckered them all this time.
So as I remember, Gattaca didn't do super great when it came out initially.
It came out and went away.
Yeah, it was one of these snowball effects where people found it on video and then told a friend and someone else told a friend, and it sort of got this effect. And I'm going to come out saying that I do like Gattaca quite a bit. but I suspect that everybody else likes it a little bit more than I do. What I love about Gattaca is, again, going back, is the ideas and the world and the conversation that you and I will have about Gattaca. The ideas and the science fiction concepts, this sort of genetic apocalyptic sort of view of things, like it's dark, but the world is presented as strangely pleasant. It's not a post-apocalyptic world, but we are almost willfully draining the humanity out of our own society here.
Yeah. Well, it's anytime you let like systematic racism or sexism or something. Yes, everything can run smoothly. It can be it can do everything.
It starts
but it's also
enough.
Pushing people down, and those people don't get a say in that and everything.
Apparently, they can already, you can design the eye color or hair color of your child in an embryonic state at this point today, right now. And some of the stuff would seem to make sense if you're predisposed to a really crippling, debilitating illness, and they can do a correction before you're born to make that not happen. That would make sense. But the idea is, are our flaws an essential part of our makeup? And this Ethan Hawke character who's trying to survive in this world of Gattaca, not having a super DNA profile and having to steal it from the Jude Law care. Well, it's given to him, not stolen. I shouldn't say steal it. So he has to leave no trace, not a microbe of his real self. He has to wear this mask of another human being in order to live his dream of being an astronaut. And the questions become, by becoming this different person, does he lose the essential person that he is really? And beating the system and succeeding in spite of his flaws, does that disprove the system? Or when he has a heart attack flying a spaceship when he's 30? There's a lot of great questions in the movie. There's a lot of high concept sci-fi stuff. And there's a lot of great actors in the movie. And that's the stuff that really I connect to and that I love about it. By its design, though, it's an essentially cold movie, a necessarily cold movie. And emotionally, I'm not as connected to it. I connect to the ideas and the world, but the emotion side I didn't connect to. And the whole brother competition of the swimming up to the island and back, it sort of seemed like classic novel format. This is very allegorical and very highly symbolic. So for me, it's the ideas almost more than the movie itself that I respect about Gattaca. But I am completely understanding if you have a different opinion.
So like for me, to me this feels like a classic older movie that I just love for that feel. Like I love the scenes when Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman are just talking and it's I'm like, there's a scene when they come out of the one building. I'm like, this feels like was it Bacall and like from
Casablanca.
It's just but that scene when they're going out to the airplane, it's just them two talking to each other, and that the scene where Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman are talking and just that, and it's about her heart and his, and it's just like that had that same feeling to me, and it's maybe not at the same level, but it's that same type of feeling of just people dealing with each other, people talking to each other. The relationship between them felt so strong. I love the relationship with Jude Law, who is like, first it's like Jude Law is like, oh yeah, like doing this because he has to, with that, but you can see them developing this relationship of growing to become friends, growing to become more than friends and everything, and that.
I really like the Jude Law character, actually.
And like same even like Ernest Borgnine and like him saying, I'm gonna clean. Don't clean it so well, and he's like, no, I'm gonna clean this really well so you can see me on the other side. And then they run into each other on the other side eventually, and that. And like I thought there's so much heart in these characters and them like going through just living their lives and being, this sucks the way it is.
Yeah.
But it's also the institution, what's just there.
And it's presented as perfection.
Yeah, and everyone knows it, like, and anyone, even the people who are in that at the high levels, there's groups of them who know it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And that this sucks. And everything, but they can't do anything about it. They can't say anything about it, but they do find their ways to do stuff about it, and everything.
And there is a contingent that is within the system, but as you were saying, aware of it. Obviously the security checkpoint towards the end of the movie is a representation of that. Yeah. He's caught, but the guy, he'd seen through the guys a long time ago, and had sort of respected the guy for getting this deep, this far. Yeah. The coldness I'm talking about wasn't necessarily about the characters or the interactions. It's the world. The idea of like this woman going to a DNA counter to swab her mouth from this guy she just kissed. To see what his profile was. Should I be with him? And if he wasn't legit profile, then I was attracted to him enough to make out with him, but alas. Right? Elias Koteas, great Canadian actor who plays, we see in flashback, Ethan Hawke's and Lauren, what's the name? Lauren Dean, I want to say? Lauren Dean's father. Ethan Hawke is born with all of these flaws, right away, a brand new baby. They take the blood sample and say this, and this. He could die of heart failure by 30. And so when they have their second baby, they do the genetics on him. And Lauren Dean's character is bigger, healthier, more capable, it would seem, than his brother.
But I love that the parents coming in, they are actually, no, we want natural. They want natural, but they just kind of get like, well, why wouldn't you do this?
Yeah, we want to make the best possible life for our son. It seems so benign and so innocent, but it's a really slippery slope.
And that's the part. I really love that. I love that it is so, like you're saying, it is cold that way, but it's all these people with so much heart kind of being held down or being like that, and how they get around it, how they can achieve and everything.
And the double-edged sword of it, which is represented with Jude Law, because he has the perfect genetic profile, and yet he had the audacity to only get a silver medal in the Olympics instead of a gold. And this is something that makes him suicidal, because genetically speaking, he is like a perfect specimen, and second place is just not good enough. So it being assigned a place. Did you ever see, this is a weird quote, the DreamWorks animated film Ants, starring Woody Allen?
A long time ago.
There's a whole scene where the ants are coming out and it's like worker ant or what was the other? Warrior. You're either a soldier, worker, worker, and that's assigned as you're coming out the egg or out of the mom. So this is the world that we've created for ourselves, and is it a better world? I mean, I think the movie's obviously telling us that it is not.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm sure you knew right away that it was the cop was his brother.
There's no way. This is why I brought it up.
Yeah. There's no way you cannot. But I also don't think they try to hide it. No. And everything.
It's handled better, but again, it's such a convention that I just wish they wouldn't have used it. And again, I talked about the whole swimming competition. Ethan Hawke shouldn't win that competition, but he does, because he just doesn't quit. He doesn't, he doesn't have this predisposition that he just gets to win because. Yeah. So he has to earn it, and therefore, because he needs it more, wants it more.
And he's willing to set because he has to challenge himself, he's willing to go further and put himself at risk. That's really what it's basically, I'm gonna swim until I can't get back, and I know I can't get back, but I'm gonna still do it, and that's why I can beat you, and that
because I'm willing to make that risk, I'm willing to take that extra step, whereas you just assume it's going to work out for you, and most of the time it does, and when it doesn't, it becomes very traumatizing. Everybody's being turned into a spoiled child. This is what's happening. That really when his dream is to become an astronaut, and he's really nervous about this job interview, and the job interview turns out to be like a urine sample.
Yep. The other piece that I'm trying to, for me, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly an astronaut is.
Right.
And that, because they go in their suits, get into spaceship, and fly up, and I'm like, what do they do now? I really want to know.
Well, and you're escaping the planet, but you're not escaping the world or the system. He's still going to have to spend every day of his life very carefully, and it seems like something that sooner or later you're going to leave a drop of sweat, or you're going to cut yourself, or something's going to...
I think maybe it's that once you've hit that point,
nobody questions it anymore.
No, yeah, why would you? Because there's no that's the other that's where they're there's no way someone could be pretending to be one of the valids, because they just can't, and everything. And so it's they're like maybe short term you might get lucky and come in, but really there's no way that you for an extended time, and that's what they kind of treat him as, is like, yeah, no, it can't be him, like because he's been here for 2 years or whatever long in that. But yeah, like, so I actually like, I liked the stuff with the brother and everything. I think it's all obvious, but it's meant to be, and it's also just kind of reinforcing that whole part of the story.
It hits the themes.
Yeah.
It's appropriate to the story. I just see the mechanism at work, and I feel that. And again, that could be a drawback of me watching too many science fiction movies. And this is not a negative review, by the way. Like, I really do like Gattaca, but I think it's like the interesting ideas of the movie more than the movie itself. It's just full of actors too. And I was watching it again, and like, oh, there's Tony Shalhoub. Yeah. I forgot Alan Arkin was in the movie. I always loved seeing Alan Arkin. And like, there's all these faces to the left and right. And at the time that Gattaca came out, maybe they weren't as big a deal. But it's kind of fun seeing that.
And also wondering about like the actual, like, your thoughts on who the murderer is and that and everything. And I'm like, does any of that matter?
It doesn't.
No, and I'm kind of like, and I know maybe it's just not supposed to, and everything. But it's also like, wasn't he the boss? And he killed his subordinate because the subordinate didn't want to. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I just missed it.
That was a distracting element, and I think like they were worried that the movie would become boring to like the popcorn audience that were expecting a sci-fi, and I think that element was sort of injected in the movie. But thematically, it does not seem to belong, that whole murder subplot.
I can see being in there because he is so perfect at what he does.
Right.
That it is a way to draw it out. Like, because really, like, he even says it, like, yeah, the only reason, like, I'm screwed now is because he got killed.
Right.
And that. And really, everything I do should be, like, they'll never catch me.
Right.
And that. And everything. Where it gives that, oh, no, this is why. And I guess, like, there's no way to do it unless, and then maybe it's actually a good thing that it's not so on the point of, oh yeah, no, he killed him because he found out someone else was doing this, or whatever. It's more, no, this is just, they're just people too. And he wanted this thing and this guy didn't want it, so he's going to kill him, and everything. Where if it had been, oh yeah, no, he discovered he wasn't invalid too, and that and everything, that'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, like, it's just, let's hammer it a little bit too hard.
Yeah.
And that. I also, one of the other things I really dug the road scene. And with the car and getting out with the glasses taken off and everything.
And all of a sudden he can't see. Yeah.
And that and everything, and just like, nope, it's this. He's willing to sacrifice everything.
Yeah. No.
And at that point, I don't think he's sacrificing it to actually keep the cover. I think it's because he wants
to keep going with Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
If I get smoked by a car, hopefully it kills me, because I would rather that than be embarrassed in front of this beautiful woman.
And that, and I think they do a really good job of showing that scene and everything, and that, and just like, like it's just one of those movies. Like, to me, this movie is classic filmmaking, with telling good stories. It's the same like 2010, those the movies that just, no, we know we have a good story, we have good actors.
It made me interested in Nicola as a director, and I don't think he's really come close to this. But and he did this Justin Timberlake sci-fi movie, In Time.
Oh, he did that one? Okay.
I think that, I'm pretty sure. But I don't think he's hit this level, at least for me yet. Of the films that he's seen, that he's made that I have seen, I haven't seen all of them.
Yeah, it was just, the Truman Show.
He wrote this screenplay, or contributed to the screenplay.
Writer for Truman Show, yeah.
Peter Weir directed Truman Show. That's a wonderful movie. I guess the horror aspect of the movie, too, is this idea of there is a spectrum that we consider normal or ideal or proper. And that spectrum changes with generations and like improvements. But it seems like once we get to a point where we decide this is perfection, all forward momentum will stop. And that concept is creepy.
Yeah, and this would be a really, really good Black Mirror episode.
Right.
It's basically like it's that same type of darker version of Twilight Zone. in that.
I also think that a theme that they nudged that might have been interesting to explore, like if they did a Gattaca TV show or something like this, like if they had a way to expand it, because there's only so much you can fit into a movie, is appropriating someone else's identity to climb the ladder. The longer you're forced to do that, the longer you're supposed to live with this backstory and live with this whatever. Do you start losing who you are? Does he essentially become one of these elites by faking it so long? Does the essential, whatever purity of him get diluted by doing it?
It's interesting in that I don't think at any point in this movie they go that route at all.
I think it would be interesting.
Yeah, because really, I'm trying to think. At no point does he really snap at people. Does he really, like Jude Law's character?
Think himself
basically like how dare you ask for, and I know he's doing it to cover up, and to make him not be questioned anymore. But if he wasn't that way, he would probably do that same thing, just because I'm perfect, leave me alone. You have no reason to question me.
I've earned this by right of birth.
And you never see Ethan Hawke's character do that at all throughout, which is actually really interesting. You would think they would have thrown in like I was saying, why didn't they have the murder deal with this stuff? I think they know, this is what the story is, this is what we tell.
Yeah, and they were razor focused on the themes, and it could have been a distraction. I understand that, but I think that was an opportunity.
Yeah.
Again, I'm focusing on the negatives of the movie, guys. I'm being devil's advocate.
Yeah, that's fine.
I say all of that, and I say I really like Gattaca and check it out. I think like everybody else says it's a 4-star movie, and I'm saying it's a 3.5-star movie. Okay. Okay, it's a good movie. It's a good movie, but it's one of those movies where I enjoy talking about it more than I enjoy watching.
This is the type of movie that I really dig, where this is a movie for grown-ups in my mind, and that it doesn't have to rely on the big special effects and stuff. And I love those movies.
Thank you for not talking down to us.
Yeah, and that, and we don't need the huge explosions. We don't need this and that. And it's just let's just tell a good story.
And when movies like this get discovered, it gives me hope. It means that there is an intelligent audience out there. They may not have shown up for it in the theaters, but they found it, and Gattaca remains a thing many years later.
It is a classic, I think.
It's earned it. So there it was, 6 science fiction movies reviewed. Now we get to the rank part of Rank and Review. Seems like my podcast title is dyslexic. I guess it should be review and rank, but it doesn't have the same...
Doesn't sound this. It doesn't flow.
No. Rank and Review is better to me. We're just going to deal with it. Again, I wasn't sure where we were going to land because I don't know you really well. I couldn't predict your taste, but I think we mostly agreed on these movies. How they rank, I don't know. It's too close to call.
It'll be close, but I think it'll be different.
Well, let's find out. What was your least favorite of these 6 science fiction movies, and why?
So while watching it, I actually probably would put Signal at the end, but after talking about it more, I'd actually put Immortal. Okay. Just going back on it, I'm just kind of like, yeah, no, it frustrated me so much while watching it that I can't, how can I not put it at the lowest?
At the risk of sounding condescending, I would have been disappointed in you if you'd put a Signal below.
Well, I think Signal frustrates me.
Right.
Because I can see it being better.
Right.
In that. So I get more annoyed when it doesn't hit its full potential. Where Immortal is just it's a mess.
Yeah.
that and everything. So yeah, so it's right at the bottom.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Followed by
next.
Signal, I'm guessing?
Yeah, then I'd go Signal. and that like the beginning was good, but it just kind of lost me, and I don't think the story just isn't there
right.
For where they should have taken things, and it's. I don't know. It's a Twilight Zone episode and everything. So it's like there's some other movies I've seen recently that are that same way, where I'm like, yeah, that was fine, but also like, no, you could have done something more with that.
Right.
And I think he's good enough and skilled enough as a director and creator of films that it could have been much better.
Right.
Yeah. And that. Then we're gonna run through. Now this is where I start to have trouble. And that. I'm going to probably go with. I'm torn right now. Actually, I am torn between Cargo and Scanners, and that. I'm going to. I have to put Cargo.
Okay.
Next.
That surprises me.
Yeah. I just it's me wanting to love Cronenberg.
Okay.
And that's so yeah. With Cargo, I think. It's like we're at the point where now like I'm enjoying watching the movies,
right,
and everything. So really, like any of these, I'd be happy to watch,
right,
and that, and if you really, so it's bad relationship in Cargo versus bad acting in Scanners,
right,
and which one
bothered you more?
Yeah, and that.
Yeah, for me it would be the bad performance in Scanners personally,
yeah.
But I get where you're coming from with that relationship.
Yeah, and that wanting to like so truly like Cargo was the one I watched last,
right?
Because I had the least expectation,
right?
And that so that probably actually helps it a lot,
mm-hmm.
Because I was kind of going in like, oh, okay. This is some little sci-fi thing.
Let's get her done.
That I haven't ever heard about at all. I don't know who it is or anything. And the reviews are kind of middling and that. So I was like, but no, it actually like I had fun with it.
It's worth your time for sure.
Yeah. So then Scanners and that and everything would be my next one. If it had a good performance in the lead, I think it could have been number one.
Yeah.
In that, but because it doesn't, yeah. And then I would end up with going after that, then 2010, and that. It's between the two of them, like Gattaca, and Gattaca's more. I like the story better in Gattaca,
right? But
they're both equal in quality.
Right.
Really, I think is what it comes down to. If you told me I had to watch either of them right away, I'd be like, yeah, let's go watch them right now.
Sure.
And they're both really good, really strong. And that I like thinking about movies of what would I want to show my kid,
right?
And that who's 17. I think I'd be more interested in showing him Gattaca over 2010.
Yeah.
And that I think it has more to say, and everything, which I love. Movies that have things to say. So really, yep. 2010 would be the second best, and Gattaca would be the first.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're close, but we're not matching. I think Scanners actually ended up being the one that we have the biggest difference, at least as the list would read.
Yeah.
But Immortal, man. Immortal is so at the bottom that like I wish I could put it in seventh. Like I was actively frustrated by the movie by the end of it. I could not fucking wait for it to end. And I like to think of myself as a pretty patient guy. One of the things I like is when I'm watching a movie and I'm not that into it and it actually turns it around on me. I was like, well played, you guys. Yeah. You almost lost me there, but you brought me back.
Well, that's almost Cargo, for me. Because like I said, like when I was halfway through, I'm kind of like, I don't really care about all these secondary characters. And then suddenly I was like, oh no, you just spend time with them in little tiny ways that were just kind of like, oh, okay, now I care.
I would for sure watch a remake of Scanners. I don't know if I would watch Scanners again, man. Like, I'm not excited about watching Scanners again. Maybe if I did like a career retrospective someday on Cronenberg, I would like give it another assessment. And like, no one can ever take away that head explosion. That shit is just epic. It is really memorably like that is a really wet scene. And like again, I put it in fifth place with no joy because I have come around completely on Cronenberg that I'm on board. Like I like him as a filmmaker, but this time didn't quite close the deal for me. All the way in fourth position, I put Cargo, believe it or not. As much as I said a lot of good things about it, It is kind of frustrating, that relationship, not just because it seems like a little bit of a superfluous relationship.
Yep.
It's the one stupid move that otherwise really savvy main character seems to make.
Yep.
There's, even though it turns out to be a good thing, there's no reason for her to trust him, and like the fact that she just lets her hormones take over, even though he might, well, turn on her at any second, just didn't feel credible in a movie that was working so hard to remain credible. But that's, again, something that I had to pick to find. So it could be one of those things where I saw the movie on the right day and it overperformed for me, or just my expectations, like you were saying, were lower.
Did you have lower expectations for Cargo going in, or did you have high?
Well, I mean, I was hopeful because I want to like a good science fiction movie, and it had a good premise. But with international films, I find it tends to go one way or the other. It's really hard to anticipate. But so yeah, Cargo then, I give Signal the third position for me just because it overperformed. You said it's basically a Twilight Zone episode, and I was like, yeah, but it's kind of a decent episode of Twilight Zone. It's got a different level of action to it, and it's a familiar story kind of approached.
I would love it if they could somehow reverse the first half and the second half.
Right.
Because then I would come away.
The movie would get better.
It gets better, and that always makes such a big, huge difference. Where I think it just got worse for me, and then I was like, I'm like, you were so good, and then no.
I'm encountering this when I revisit movies for the podcast too. How strange it is, and specific, like the day you see a movie can really weigh in on how you feel about it. Like revisiting old movies that I'd sort of dismissed. And I revisit on the podcast.
So, like, we've passed on movies 1 year.
Yeah.
And then I go to a film festival, see it at a festival, and then we showed it the next year.
Right.
Because I'm like, nope, the first year, didn't like it. This year, that's really good.
Or sometimes you have to sit with it for a while. Yeah. And you realize, you watch a movie and you're like, I don't know if that worked for me. But, like, days later, you're still thinking, maybe there was something to that. Maybe I need to visit it. And if you have that, that usually means something. That usually means, it might not mean it's a great movie, but it means that there's something there. 2010, the year we made contact, fought its way to second place. I think it might a little bit be an artifact of the time that it's made, but because I'm such an appreciator of that era of cinema, it didn't really bother me that much. I love the acting, and like I said, I didn't want the redemption story for Hal, but I can't deny how well that story was handled. Yeah. So it sounded like I was talking shit about Gattaca, and I really didn't mean to talk shit about Gattaca. I have this thing, especially with movies that are well loved, that when I do the review, I tend to focus a little bit on the negatives, on the things that, it's a great movie, but
it's also, if you're bouncing off someone else, and also if someone else really enjoys it, there's this is why. Yeah. And unless both are just like, oh my god, this was the best thing ever.
Yeah. I didn't mean to come off as cold with the movie, is all I'm saying. Like, I do really like it, but I do also think, like, really great science fiction, it's the conversation you have after the movie is as valuable to me as the movie itself. But in order to get that conversation, you need a high quality movie.
Yeah. So, and I think out of all these, this is the one that gives you the best conversation. Like Gattaca at the end, like really, like all the rest, like yes, they all have elements of like high up people versus low down people, or they have like the whole like if we just treat people well, things like they all have something, but that's what Gattaca is.
And not to say that it doesn't have good visuals to it, because it's a very well made, convincingly futuristic visual movie, but it's not the spectacle. It's not desperate in its trying to like wow us.
We didn't talk about like them up on top of the windows cleaning that roof. Yeah. That's like a beautiful scene. Like there's a lot of good visuals in there. It's just not science fiction visuals and that.
The ideas are the star.
Yeah.
And if going back to where we started with the theme of the episode with science fiction, it's a marriage usually of visual spectacle and intense, interesting, speculative ideas.
Yeah.
And ideally you can marry them both. But I think Gattaca got us there.
Cool.
So I'm sorry, it was not quite. We didn't go 6 for 6. We didn't go 0 for 6. But I don't think we're gonna scrap. You know?
Nope. No, I think it's all good.
I think the closest we come to disagreeing is The Signal. And again, I wonder if I'd seen it on a different day, if I was more cynical on that day.
And truthfully, my expectation for Cargo was low.
Right.
My expectation for Signal was higher.
Right.
Going in. So when that doesn't hit, and even though I was really hard on Immortal, I do have kind of this soft spot of it because it was like, man, movies that do throw so much shit at the wall can sometimes be fun. Like you mentioned the
Southland Tales?
Southland Tales.
Yeah.
I have the Southland Tales poster in my wall.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk shit about it.
Oh, no, that's fine. No, the reason I have it is actually because I won it as a prize, and it's signed by Richard Kelly
nice.
And everything. But I'm like, I have this soft spot for it because it is like, yeah, let's just throw crap there, and what sticks, and you have cars having sex, and that, like, so it's like, what the hell?
Well, say what you will about both of those films, like, they're going for it. They're distinctly themselves, but for me, like, they didn't work.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being on Rank and Review.
Thanks.
If it's something that you enjoyed, I would love to have you back on. Glad to have you in the neighborhood. There's so few people that seem to value film and filmmaking and filmmakers in Saskatchewan, so you're one of the good ones, brother.
Thank you. It's a blast to be on. I love getting on and anywhere and just chatting and stuff about movies and things like that. So yeah, it's fun. That's why we do the festival, just to keep this stuff going and have fun with it and bring people in.
Well, you are always welcome on
Thank
Rank
you.
and Review. And that's another episode out of the way, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that. As usual, I encourage you to send your feedback to ranknreview@gmail.com about this or any other show of Rank and Review. And you're always helping me when you tell a friend to listen to the show. If you love Rank and Review, believe that Rank and Review loves you back.